All right, let's go to we'll move quicker through these other ones, but we had a lot there on the Big 12. Let's go to our favorite person in college football media. Paul Finebaum makes a comparison between Arch Manning and Tim Tebow. Arch Manning is the best college football quarterback we have seen since Tim Tebow entered the scene in 2006. Never mind Johnny Manziel, never mind Cam Newton, never mind Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, any of these guys. It is Arch Manning. We've talked about the media hype with this, boys, and how I do believe, and one thing I will say is if Feinbaum would have gone a little bit different direction, I think the media hype around Arch, as crazy as this is, and as somebody who lives in a state that, housed Tebow, I think it's possible that the Arch mania could exceed Tebow mania. I'm not confident about that. I'm not telling you that's going to happen. As far as better quarterback, I have an interesting take here, but I want to get you guys' I don't think Tebow was that great of a quarterback. Now, I think he was the greatest college football player ever. I will say that. Like, I'll put down the FSU love and the UF hate and tell you that I do think he was the greatest college football player of all time. I don't think he's on my list of like top 10 like quarterbacks only. Now, I know that's the position he played, and so that's maybe a weird thought, but I think you guys understand what I'm saying with that. So Arch Manning as a quarterback, I could see him being better than Tim Tebow was. Do I think he'll be the player that Tebow was, all encompassing? Probably not. Thoughts from you guys?
I mean, to already say that Arch Manning is better than Tim Tebow is ridiculous. Like, there's not enough of a sample size. He's barely played. I knew this was going to happen. I've been talking about it for the longest time on this show, is that the burnout with Arch Manning is going to happen late September, early October. And
it's happening in July, dude.
I know that's the point, is that it's really bad. And like, we'll get Texas versus Ohio State right out the chute, and the networks are going to be just all over Arch Manning, and you will be exhausted to hear it. He could have an average game against Ohio State and win it, be 10 of 20 for 153 yards or something like that. And they'll be like, oh, he's got such potential. He's going to be this, he's going to be that. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking like Drew Brees at Purdue was a better quarterback than Tim Tebow. You could look at Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson at Clemson, definitely better at playing quarterback than Tim Tebow was. Tim Tebow, for all of his mental toughness and physical gifts, was never an elite passer and was never an elite processor because he wasn't asked to be. Alex Smith within Urban Meyer's system at Utah was a better quarterback than Tim Tebow. I think that is a very easy argument to make. So to say that Arch Manning is already better than Tim Tebow is insane because we've barely seen anything of Arch Manning. It's just the data isn't there to support it.
I'll go a step further and say it's not a shot at Tebow at all because, in my opinion, Tebow is the epitome of college football. Like, when you think of the sport and why we fell in love with it, he is on the Mount Rushmore of dudes that I watched because of this is what made me fall in love with the game. But I love how Paul Finebaum says he's going to be the greatest quarterback since Tim Tebow, which means he is then glossing over the success of what we saw in that 1 year down on the plains of Auburn, where Cam Newton single-handedly carried a team to the national championship and threw them into the title while winning a Heisman Trophy. He purposely then skipped on over what we saw a few years later out in Norman, Oklahoma, where this walk-on kid by the name of Baker Mayfield won the starting job, proceeded to beat everybody in the Big 12, win a Heisman Trophy, and take his team to the college football playoff. He seems to be forgetting about another quarterback by the name of Joseph Burrow, who didn't have any success when he was at Ohio State, decided to go on down to LSU, had a very good first season, and then decided to set records the next season en route to becoming a Heisman Trophy winner and a national champion. It seems to bother me that we seem to forget about what Caleb Williams did when he won a national championship, or how about we talk about what Michael Penix did when he won a national championship. And those are two guys that we don't even mention in the same stratosphere as names like Mayfield, like Newton, like Joe Burrow. And God forbid I forgot about the most important one, this one kid who was viewed to be a defensive back at Oregon, at Texas, at other schools, stays close to home, goes into the SEC when initially thought he was going to be playing in the Big 12, marches on into Bryant-Denny Stadium and says, hey man, 29-24, I'm Johnny Football. Let's trademark this too. So it's like, we can talk about them as quarterbacks and we're single-handedly forgetting that those four guys existed past Tebow, but Arch has to reach this Tebow level. I'm frustrated because I've talked about the Nico Iamaleava hype from all of last year. It's not just a one-man show, and you're putting it on him to be one of the biggest and best names in the history of the sport. And there have been so many other quarterbacks that have put up incredible numbers in single seasons that we don't even talk about because it's Tim Bleepin Tebow. And it's just like, can we give him a fair comp? Like a fair comp. Alex Smith at Utah feels like a fair comp. Drew Brees at Purdue, year one, feels like a fair comp. And again, the other part that just drives me so crazy about this is you overlook everyone else on that team. You overlook the development of the offensive line. You overlook the wide receiver position. You overlook the returning defensive production. You overlook the way that they were able to go out in the transfer portal and bring in top tier names like Minad Watson, or they went and brought in Hero Canoe. They went and they brought in Jack Endries, who's an elite receiving tight end. Emmett Mosley from Stanford, who led all ACC quarterbacks. It's all of these things. And you still look at that running game with CJ Baxter fully healthy and Trey Wisner 1,000 yards last year and Ryan Wingo going into another year in the system. And you have one of the best cornerbacks in Malik Muhammad and one of the best defensive ends in Colin Simmons. But screw it, they don't have the Manning last name, so we don't need to focus in on them at all. Right. It's all about Arch. And that's the infuriating part. We've put him on a pedestal he will never be able to meet.
We make all these comparisons and all these comps, and I know they're different players. But if Arch is just Quinn Ewers, they're going 11-1 or 10-2 in the playoff. Like, it's not, and I think he'll be better by the time he retires than Quinn Ewers, right? So I'm not trying to, but like, he doesn't have to be Tebow. And good on him if he is. If he retires, if he goes to the NFL in 2 years and wins a Heisman or wins 2 Natties or wins 2 Heismans, whatever, like, we can give him every award that you can think of. Then great. We'll look back at his career and say, you know what? He might have been a little better than Tim. Wins the next 2 SECs, wins the next 2 Natties, wins a 2 Heisman. Sure. Then we'll give it to him, right? Like, he can have it. But all he needs to do is be Quinn Ewers. Their schedule sets up really favorably. They're going to be 11-1 or 10-2. In my opinion, maybe worst case. Now, is there a scenario where they go 9-3? Maybe. But that would include losing all 3 of their big games. I don't think it happens. It's just too much. Now, could he get there? Could he be better? Could he be a better passer? Could he be more efficient? Sure, I think all that's realistic. But to anoint him past, like you just mentioned, all the guys you mentioned, I forgot about the Clemson guys. Yeah, Watson, Lawrence, like, that's a lot, man.
We're scratching the surface. And like, I see the GOAT 1823 talking about Tebow's stats. Stats can so often be a crutch when we're actually evaluating what a player's performance was. You have to look at the players that were around him. You have to look at the system. Urban Meyer's system for quarterbacks, regardless of where he went, was very simple and very quarterback friendly. It was maximum 1 to 2 reads, take off and run it. And you can see that reflected in Tebow's stats. Also, he started for a long time at Florida, so you can understand the total accumulation here. So to make the statistics argument, I'll understand it, but I'm not hearing a lot of it. Here's the thing that comes up so much, and I talk about this on my own podcast. Emotional equity often trumps the player's actual ability. Is Tim Tebow better at quarterbacking than a Baker Mayfield was, than a Kyler Murray was, than a Caleb Williams was? Like, we can go into this argument so many different ways. And unless you were in those offensive meetings where it's like, hey, Tim, we need you to do X, Y, and Z. And he's like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. And then you sit in the same meetings with Joe Burrow and he's got every constellation, every point of light figured out. It's like, man, this guy's got a better handle on playing quarterback than that guy does. But because Tim Tebow gave us so many iconic moments and memories, people are blocking it all out. And I think that's, again, the issue with what Finebaum said, is that, oh, he just believes Arch is going to give us all these things. We have no idea if he will.
Can we just let him play one game? Just one game. That's all I'm asking for, Paul. Nothing else. One.
I hope they beat Ohio State by 21. And he has like 5 touchdowns, just so I can see it explode even more. That's actually I'm not really, if anything, I would really cheer for the anti-SEC purpose, right? For my trolling purposes. But I hope they win by 21. He has 5 touchdowns. I want to see Paul's head like literally explode. Not that it could get much bigger than it already